Okay, well, thank you everybody for coming. This was two lectures on a similar subject, which I have given last year. And in both cases, and it will be also tonight, it's really I was invited to try to talk about addressing the crisis of humanities discipline and contemporary culture. It's a big subject, and I am humbly trying my best. So this is the lecture about it, and the title of the paper is similar to this: Contemporary Crisis in Discourse of Humanity. And humanity discourse, I better respond there to this one. Just quickly, humanity discourse used to be with the science, one of the central streams of 19th century kind of universal, but nationalistic universities and academies of science. So each country had its cultural hero, and then humanities and so on and so forth. Now, today, and this image shows the major ideological, and lots of ideological, I don't want to use the word pressures, but ideological framing of existence was through the schooling and humanities. Now it's through the internet, through the globalization, through games. Here are these children not playing together, they are playing games. So this is what this paper is trying to address, mostly indirectly, but some little bit directly, but in as optimistic way as it is reasonable and based on our work. So by the time a child is 5, they have seen several billion distractions without remorse. The games were originally invented to desynthesize soldiers, to get them not to have any compassion for those who would be not existing anymore after they have gone through their territory. So the basic human trait of compassion, of mirroring each other, is being severely attacked in every possible way. And this touching photograph of the 2 newly arrived humans, and the one is completely, almost like a mother, it's completely responding to the person. We always underestimate the children, and with the baby talk, oh darling, there. But the children have inborn wisdom. They have so many traits which they come with. And the way of responding. The psychologist Winnicott, which is one of my favorite, he was a pediatrician and psychologist, has formulated that the mother's face is like a mirror for the baby. The baby reads its being, its state, its existence through the mother's face. And the mutual mirroring creates a very important loop which really contains the neurological developments, the language arrives, and all other important things. This is after a very difficult birth. And when I lived in London, I was involved with people studying the premature and babies which were born with difficulties. So I have a certain research track with that. And when I was doing that, it was observed that the small babies sometimes have a tremendous compassion for the mother who has gone through an ordeal for them to be there. Not all of them. Also, in the later stages, if the one parent dies, if the mother dies, the oldest sister becomes the mother, and she suddenly knows what to do and how to. So these inborn traits, which have been always there, which now the neuroscience measures, and some people believe that that's huge advantage from our primitive beginnings. But from our very beginning, this little child really, with mature compassion, he's not crying to be held. He's holding his mother. And a few weeks later, he is with his mother. He is a real baby. He's a real child. The trauma of the birth has been absorbed, and it's working its way through for both of them. And then a few months later, it's a balanced, attentive baby with bonding to a dog, natural. And here, first time taken to a gallery, experiencing a painting in wonder and understanding, with all the neural faculties open to receive this new experience. And that happens to babies. I'm sorry this photograph is out of focus, but the presence of the baby is complete with all the mother's task. It's comfortable on her back. The both parent and the baby are looking and talking to someone on the side there, completely in unison. The baby is in a mature response to the grown-up. This little Dogon child is holding the doll, which was a totem or kind of cultural object, which was used by the wisdom holder of the village, who is also, helps at birth. That was used for her to be born, and she's holding it in a different sense. She knows that it's a ritual object. It's not a doll. This is the wisdom holder, midwife. The word escaped me. The midwife of the baby, and with a great presence in her community. And of course, I showed this picture last time. The children are always involved in rituals, either as performers or as witness. They are completely integrated into what happens in the community. And I showed this last time, but these are my favorite shortcut images of mirror neurons, and this beautiful photograph of a neural loop. You don't know now who is mirroring whom. And the children very early begin to mime and give what they were given as a completely natural process of becoming. And of course, intensely imitating the grown-ups. And humans, animals, birds, in these early stages, Their neural faculties are so extraordinarily open and attuned, almost ingenious in a way of responding to reality. And because of these pictures, I can't read this, but it doesn't matter. Infant imitation is the seed, and the adult mentalizing theory-making capacity is the fruit. And this is very important. It's from the neuroscience findings. I read the next one and then comment on them. Through imitating others, the human young understands that others are not only share behavioral states, but are like me in deeper ways as well. This propels the human young on the developmental trajectory of developing an understanding of other minds. So, sorry I read it so badly. Often, the cultural thing, like language abilities, yes, there is a science which studies them, but neuroscience has found that the same centers, which are supposed to be science and superior, are exactly the same centers which are for responding to languages, to cultural events, and so on and forth. There, and I would show it later, specific centers for specific activities, but in a neural totality, the initial imitation leads to expression, scientific theory, and other. They are completely linked. I have this examples from Bali where a very interesting mirroring takes place in two directions, in how we know it, face to face, but also the young girls are only young girls between 7 and 9 are allowed to perform a very important part of ritual in Bali. Bali is Hindu, and so it's really a story of Ramayana enacted by the whole village, but only the little girls can perform a central part of the ritual. So the wisdom holder of the village trains them both by showing the movements, but also by molding the body, by moving with her and synchronizing her. So the girl gets tangible sense of being held. And then when the time of the performance comes, numerous photographs shows the deep understanding and presence. These are not little children who don't know what they are doing, with a deep concentration, knowing that something archetypal, mythological has been enacted, and that would in some way feed the people of the community. And these are the objects which bring the child, and also any costume of any kind, brings the people into the archetypal space to really perform the depths of something. So it's not a masquerade, it is the tool. Look at the seriousness and the involvement of this girl. And also the intense peripheral vision when they know what they're doing together. And this is the wisdom holder you saw earlier, who is carrying this 1,000 years tradition in her community. So on the other end of the scale, the bereavement is also part of wisdom holders. The knowledge of how to help through this immense trauma of separation and loss. This is some Greek terracottas which are used for the bereavement. So it's not to negate, it's to live through it. And Isis Miss, her turmoil of destruction of Osiris, it's a human passion and difficulty, and the myth helps redeem the bereavement. And even today, this dance is danced in Apulia, in Italy, at the funerals by the women of the village. So these knowledge of human needs and human faculties, being able to read, has been with us always. What is very interesting in the cultural field, and I have been particularly concentrating on it for years, it's the osmosis. In the chemistry and the biochemistry, if there is an impermeable membrane, the weaker solution, like the one on the left with the little dots, and the stronger solution merge into each other and create a new substance in which the small amount influence the large. So in cultural field, a single person can inspire the entire civilization, the entire culture, the entire process. And it happened many times. I mean, Socrates is a classic example. The Italian Renaissance was brought by the Byzantine scholar, Plato, who, when they came from Byzantium with Palaiologos asking for help because he was not a cleric, he gave lectures, and the Medicis already knew about him. And after 1,000 years of closure of the academy, Platonic Academy in Constantinople, the open Platonic Academy in Florence started. When it was closed at 500 BC, the Byzantium said, there have never be anything pagan anymore. We have won. 1,000 years later, fully trained Platonist has appeared because those things are always there. The Egyptian presence in the Greek and European culture has been denied, even by the Greeks themselves. And it is, the African roots of civilizations. This is the diagram of a pyramid. The diameter of the earth, first of all, the Egyptians knew that the earth is circular, a globe, but they also respected the senses, and what we see, we are given to comprehend in that way. So they knew the diameter of the globe, and reconciliation of the circle and the square comes from what the pyramid base was, but that extra bit on the top is the diameter of the moon, which governs the tip of the pyramid. And the relationships of these two circles is in the golden mean, the proportion of greatest harmony used in architecture and many things. These kind of ideas came with Pythagoras and few other people. Pythagoras was trained in Egypt for 20 years before he was sent to Greece and actually the Italian part, to bring this wisdom. So, and lots of it was never written down, and Plato was also in that tradition. And dialogues are never what Plato says, it's what people say in the dialogue. Anyway, the Greek theater and sense of the performance in the ritual is really Dionysian mystery. And Dionysius and Osiris are identified in the inner teachings of both Greeks and Osiris, of course, in Egypt. So their identification and the similarity of some of the rituals is very important. So at the root of the theater as a performance is really the ritual understanding of human needs, which we'll just touch upon a few minutes later with Aristotle and catharsis. This permeation of ideas, Vitruvius' drawing of the ideal theater is based on the 12-pointed star of the zodiac, this presence of astronomy, of knowledge of astronomy in architecture. Pyramid is aligned perfectly to the four corners of the world. Certain stars on a certain day shine into the channels inside and so on and so forth. This Greek theater going to Rome is based on these concepts. They permeate, percolate. They are osmosis of culture. The Egyptians also had a tremendous sense, understanding, and use for proportions, geometry, and all human measures start the feet, the palm, the hand to the elbow from the tip of the finger, and so on and so forth. These translated into Latin become digitus, unica, mina palmus, and so on, but is the same principles. And Vitruvius introduces this reconciliation of the circle and the square, not only through the pyramid, but also the Egyptian concept through the human figure. Reconciles the circle and the square, the here and the on. And this extraordinary Leonardo's drawing is the most remarkable expression. We in our performance Tarantula, start with studying and expressing these proportions. It was the root of healing. Tarantella Pizzica was a healing dance. At the root of it was understanding of human being, human proportions. So, and wisdom holders of those traditions here enacted by Mahdi, one of our performers, knew these great important insights taught through orally and through songs and through stories. So Aristotle mimesis is just a tip of an iceberg of knowledge which has been always there. He is a magnificent person in articulating, and the seeming dichotomy between Plato and Aristotle is a fabrication of the Western, from medieval scholasticism to the 19th century and well into the 20th century. And some, people still hold on to it. But Aristotle never betrayed the inner work which neither Plato nor Pythagoras ever wrote about. He wrote about biology, practical things. His patron was Alexander the Great. He did all of that, and his articulations are very clear because his job was to give lessons, to give material for discussion. So this dichotomy of Plato and Aristotle, it's part of the Western fabrication in which, in some way, idealizing, saying that Pythagoras rose out of the superstition of ages to be the first scientist, and Plato brought the clear consciousness, a Western consciousness, to the world. So it becomes ideological excuse for demeaning all of this knowledge which has always been there. Plato was aware of Persian traditions, of Chaldean mysteries. He also went to Egypt, wasn't there for 20 years. He never betrayed some of those things which now neurological science discovers, and they were not disclosed so the people wouldn't use them to manipulate. So they wouldn't be selling their Coca-Colas with it. They will be holding them and helping them. And I'm sorry I mentioned Coca-Cola. It's 1 million products. This one just came into my mind. And what has been discovered recently, that Republic has a secret musical score in it. And it has been deciphered by a scientific method. The word is just escaping me now, but it can not. And they have reconstructed it, and it's really very similar to the chanting of Hindu chanting, just vowels into space. And also in some discourse, there is a discussion, is the music right, or which kind of music? It's philosophical music and popular music, but this is discussion. But the paper itself is a secret call for harmonizing. So, the catharsis, which Aristotle wrote, the plays, reason and function, has been known again among Tolga, Altai culture and shamans. They have known about it and known how to create it and give it to them. Beyond being performative, being full of vital energy, which awakens just like that child looking at its mother and having neurological space created. So, the women have held throughout millennia from the prehistory these sensitive rhythms, herbs. In food preparations, they have done preventive and healing processes for the people immediately. And some of those women grow into a community healers. This photograph here is a ritual, Kazakh's ritual of women celebrating the deities from prehistory to Bibi Fatima. So it's like Altaic and Zoroastrian things are included into Islamic celebration. And the one reason I put it in there, the woman with the white scarf quietly in the back. People are listening. The woman who knows the song is dedicated to them. The drum is there. But the woman in the back is the wisdom. When it's not the ceremony, she's just having the same shawl like everybody else. But she's only recognized by the white shawl, the ceremony. But if you look at her, she's completely holding quietly a place for all of them to have a real experience of what ritual is meant to be. And the circular formations, or any formations, of humans celebrating their being together, the recovered closeness, just that the little child who after traumatic birth has regained and is smiling at the mother's breast. We always lose and regain. And these simple community rituals help in that. I showed this one last time too. They will be interchangeable. In the next ritual, the ones who are observing will be performing. But the last person on the left holds the place quiet, keeps the energy. And what energy? Something keeps that neural space available as best as that person can. So I'll show you some project which in this confusion and despair of people being isolated by the electronics, they have no empathy much for each other, and many other things which I'll touch a little bit later. There are also very simple initiatives, and that's what I want to show you, and also some of our work which we have done, not thinking that it will be with this issue, but it turns out that there are very minimal models for that. This is in Kadıköy district in Istanbul, a community garden, which people have small box, and this parent and others make sure that the child sees the plants growing, waters them, takes care for them. So it has some time away from the electronics. And each family has just a little box, but they're all looking how it grows and what is there. And, you know, it's tidy, untidy, it's real. This is building of the lake in Italy many years ago. And these are urban people who have very rarely mixed cement or carried stones, came to a summer school, and then building this lake for 4 years based on the irrigation, ancient irrigation methods which local farmers did, always leaving enough water for the neighbor. And the lake was built on that principle at the end of the ravine where the water was disappearing into the underground. So this is a big initiative, but nevertheless, compared to the destruction of the world, it's a small little gesture in which at the end, The plants and everything, the nature adopted them, and it became nature. It was initially human-made. Then there was a feud, and then somebody plowed through it, and it went. So it doesn't exist anymore. Nevertheless, the people who work on it was internal something, I cannot define it. Being going through something. In Oakland, in a complicated district where there is some racial tension, parts of it are beginning to gentrify, but most of it is people with low income. And in America, neighbors don't talk to each other. I live in a building, I have a small apartment, one-room apartment. There are 200 of them. I have seen same people in the elevator. I said hello, they don't respond. If I say hello to a person I have never seen in Istanbul, they say hello, they smile back. Or in any other part, I don't know Paris, but definitely in Romania and Belgrade and other places. So in this community, we started just spontaneously, first in a garden where children were coming, and then somebody gave the parking lot to do it, and every Saturday, neighbors came, and over 5 years, hundreds of these were built and put on the houses. And people of all ages built them, and there was an old lady's home, and they crocheted these beautiful doilies, which were then resined and stretched and resined in these frames, and then they withstood the weather. And initially these ribbons were there to sort of not block, but then it was allowed for people to make flags, and these old ladies also made flags, but they wrapped around the poles, and the original ones were white, so we tried to paint them, but when they're painted, they're camouflage. So everybody went back to the white shapes which are legible and ribbons. We didn't know that shamans in Siberia put same type of ribbons on their drums and things. So it's somewhere in the collective. And then the neighbors put this project into a big national competition, and it won Regenerating America as a community invention, not as Biennale project, not as some art positioning banana on the wall or something, but as community. And so I'm just going to show a few experts from our performances, which are done on minimal resources, without just gathering a few people, with always starting with where the person who wants to perform are not from some script or something which was done before, but slowly, maybe the theme of the play is there, a few notions, but the actual characters are built around the people and what they can do. And also, not always the theater is either available, and our interest was how to bridge deep and sophisticated aesthetic with the community. This is a performance in reopening of the oldest swimming pool in San Francisco, which was, because of the earthquake, all breaking down. They rebuilt it, and they asked us to create some kind of opening performance. They had the politicians doing ceremony and talking. And I said, well, we are not modern or modernist. They said, we saw your performance in Oakland, we like it, okay. So we did a Persephone myth, and part of it performed in the water, part at the edges of the water. Audience was where the photograph was taken from. The storyteller and the musicians are there in the corner. And it was not very short. The Hades was at the other end, but it was beautiful. And then also engaging with a very difficult park in Oakland, where there was lots of casualties and drug wars, and an amphitheater which was built in the 30s was burned and used for criminal activities. And because of Artship's work in Oakland and connection to the community, this particular community invited us to do a performance. So we decided to do it with the children who live around there, and also with children who have witnessed tragedies, and children who haven't, but who knew about it. So we brought costumes, but the stories came from what children were interested in, unless they were criminal stories imitating the media. So we kind of begin to look what they like and so on and so forth. Anyway, this is an example of two completely different characters, but included. The one with the crown of man's tie on his, it's a very talented singer. He was 10 years old. We met him there, and he became the member of our company for a good 6 years. And now he's singing on Broadway because he liked musicals, so that's okay. The other one is a Mexican boy who was nervous and shy, but so much wanted to help the park. So we created a costume for him to hide, and he was just going around watering the park. This woman is one of our performers, but she did this piece saying, who is telling me I cannot be ballerina? And she combined Tchaikovsky and some of the hip hop of her own making and dance beautifully. She can dance. And so and so. And this child, parents said, was very talented. His story was absolutely beautiful. His father said, no way, this is all nonsense. But somehow the other neighbors persuaded him. And then he said to one of the grown-ups, I would perform if you stand by me. So quickly the costume was made, and the boy delivered the story. Our ensemble performed with grace and skills within the context of all present. In San Francisco, in urban parks, we also performed at performances which were trying to create more public access to programming, recreational programming in the parks. And these are the two But we were in Prague at a Fringe Festival performing Tarantella, and there is this beautiful bridge, always crowded by visitors. But we thought, why not? Let's do bits of our Tarantella there. So we got up at 4 in the morning, went there, brought a little rope, and there was not many people, just people going to work, and they respected the rope. And we created these images of this bridge and us on it. And lots of people I met from Prague who live there, who are in the theater, they said, we always wanted to do that, but it's always crowded. I said, well, if you get up at 4 in the morning. But the reason I put this here, not to show off or to say, this was an adventure for us. It wasn't advertised. It wasn't promotion. It was to be together. And we were an ensemble. And this is our musician, who is always invisible in performances, and now there on the bridge at 5 in the morning, everybody is thanking her and being together. When we had a ship, we addressed the crisis of perseverance with young people. We had plans and partially culinary jobs for them and maritime jobs. We were offered 250 jobs a year, but we were in the way of real estate and the ship had to go. But the children had no role models of perseverance. So seeing dancers rehearsing, not just on the rope, but somewhere, someone singing, cello person playing, carving wood, people making furniture, had a role model of perseverance. They come week after week and see these people work, perform, being. We also work with disabled person, Grace Lynn, who came to one of our performances. She had a polio as a baby, and she said, I want to work with you. And I said, okay. So we built the sculpture and costumes around her, with her, and she had a tremendous stage presence. She was born a performer in the house. We created sculptures and we carried her on. And that she was carried, and then they pulled this carrying sticks, and she sits there and then put it back. But then we made this contraption, and she, for the first time in her life, stood up, and then with the Japanese lullaby, she's Chinese, he's Filipino, with Japanese lullabies, we created this piece called Zen Waltz. And that contraption is under her skirt. And it looks as if she's guiding him, but in fact, he's moving her. So, in conclusion, this dichotomy of tangible and simulated, it's not going to go away. We are now on a simulated reality, and I'm grateful for it. Yes, it's kind of miraculous. But nevertheless, if some time is not given to tangible experience, we'll have different human beings, and maybe that's how it's going. But meanwhile, if we could somehow create motivation and courage, demonstrate to young people that the electronic industry as a, as a commodity, not as a communal health, with the knowledge of neuroscience and cognitive psychology, is attacking mirror neurons as a seed of empathy. Attention span as a seed of learning ability is pretty much ruined globally. And memory as a container for acquired knowledge, digestions, and containment is relegated to the machine. So the brain has these specific centers which the children would spontaneously do. They would sing, they would move, the linguistic thing appears, they would make doodles. Now it's all just games. So we'll see. Now when I see small children, the boys are imitating karate movements and are running around, and the girls are doing a sort of hip hop. So, but the traditional cultures had always children. They would bring them with us. They would be part of it. The two players, even their body shows when they're together. These are two Albanian players. This oneness is the catharsis. So those who listen, they mirror the unity. That's why duets are so beloved, because the two are coming together in song. Attention, listening, and sharing through ears. The first organ developed already in the womb. It's enriching, restoring. The basket maker who was at the school where that lake was built taught people how to build a basket, and it starts with either their measure of the hand, the initial rosette of it, or with his if it's to be given a soul. The women for thousands of years have known her preventive and daily have made sustainable, wise food. But the knowledge is slowly disappearing, replaced by tins and MSG's food. The people who had the wisdom might not have the time for us, and might not have a time to wait. They're gone. Nevertheless, I have seen small, spontaneous coalition of women, mothers, school teachers mostly. Yes, there are coalitions of men too, not all coalitions of men and women, but small, spontaneous coalitions doing carefully the visceral training, bringing children to the thing. It has to start one-to-one, not as legislation. So, show you the final image of this, and its title is The New the secret of bonding stories can give. They knew bonding secret of stories. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Slobodan.
So here we are. Yeah.
So if
Thank you very much.
for questions.
Pleasure.
Now it's time.
Hello, Dede. Hello, Ipek.
Hello, Patricia.
It's nice seeing you. I'm sorry, my boyfriend is playing the flute in the background, and
Why not? It's beautiful.
yes, we have a little house. So, but thank you so much for yeah.
It's good to see you.
Yes, always, always.
Beautiful.
Yes.
Yeah, just what we were talking about.
Exactly.
So, we play.
I'm gonna disconnect.
Lynn, did you want to say something? You don't have to. It's just look, you wanted to say something.
Thank you, Slobodan. Thank you.
Oh, my pleasure.
Slobodan, deeply moving, Slobodan. Thank you, thank you.
You know, in Isak Denison's story, The Blank Page, there is this storyteller who is telling the young trainee to must be faithful to the story. And the trainee said, why? She said, you would know one day. If the story is faithful to its, I use the word archetype, at the end, the silence reigns. So that is, in a way, the biggest compliment is just then, because we are, you know, in the 20th century, people on Zoom. I'm sure if we are sitting around the fire, the silence might be 5 minutes, 10 minutes, half an hour, 3 days, not 3 days, because they will get caught. But so really the silence, it's the greatest encouragement for me. So we don't have to wreck our brains to, unless somebody really is burning to us or something. But it was a beautiful togetherness, and I'm so grateful. Because I go to these conferences and sometimes they are very aggressive because they don't want this talk. And I'm used to it. So this is really just that. And in the one which we plan for the spring, with 4 of us giving our papers and ending with a performance, just like here we honored our work in San Francisco, we'll show some things from the work here.
You'll let us know about that, won't you?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Ipek would, we are already brainstorming about it.
Great. İpek, thank you for sending the second link. Will you
Oh,
send me this
my
one as well?
pleasure.
Yeah, lovely. Thanks very much.
And Slobodan, we have a few comments in the chat section.
Mhm.
It's Gabriela says, Happy New Year. It's such a joy to start the year listening to such a special ideas. As usual, you inspired us. Thank you, she said.
Lovely. Well, thank you for her.
And Aslı said, thank you so much for this beautiful lecture. Always a pleasure to hear your wonderful experiences.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. We keep going.
So, Slobodan, I think you set the mode with the rhythm, with silence and listening. So we are all
I know.
in.
Well, we can close and then people can continue to be in the
Maybe
side.
tomorrow we can send our questions and comments through
Sure.
emails.
Don't worry, but it was beautiful. And Ipek, if you close it, then, and really, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you very much for everything. Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Happy New Year.
Bye.
Happy New Year,
Maybe it's
everyone.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye.
All the best.
Mm.
All the best.